was that 15?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
We're trying something new, so we're not really sure if the intro music actually started or not. And I think I've totally missed Jarvis's cue. So, well, no further ado. Welcome to week 11 edition of Intentional Streaming with my co-host Jarvis.
What's up, everybody?
And myself, Flip. Ooh, yay. So, sorry, the technical difficulties had me thrown off a little bit.
We're back, though. We're back on track.
Yes, definitely so. We're going to have another nice hour and a half long show, aren't we?
No, not this week.
No, not this week. So, first things first, we'll just start off. Make sure you like and subscribe and
hit that bell.
Alrighty. Let's hop right into this and go over the news for the week. Dez Bryant making his first appearance of the year with the Saints last Thursday, tore his Achilles. Done for the year.
Ouch.
Could his career be over as well? Possibly.
Could possibly. The only thing I know for sure is he's probably the biggest Saints fan on planet Earth right now, because if they can manage to get all the way to the Super Bowl and win, he gets a ring.
Yep. Guys on injured reserve do get a ring with their team, which is a pretty cool deal. In a corresponding move, the Saints did sign even more washed up Brandon Marshall, who was just released by the Seahawks.
Implications there? Any? You excited? You targeting him?
I think you'd have to be pretty desperate. I really do.
Yeah, I think if there's ever a touchdown or bust type wide receiver, I think it's got to be him in this offense. I think the only value he may have is down near the goal line of some of those red zone targets. But other than that, he's not going to be the guy that does a lot of work in between the 20s. So
yep, agreed. Nick Mullins, unfortunately, still remains the starting quarterback for the 49ers, even with his rocky performance last Monday night.
Yeah, why not? Just, give the kid some confidence. Roll him out there, and, if he starts playing well, he could garner some attention, and maybe another team will come knocking, because they're not getting rid of Garoppolo.
What about the confidence of C.J. Beathard? Don't you care about that?
Well, I really don't. But as an organization,
there's other people that do.
As an organization, you'd think that you would, because I think that he's more of a viable option than Nick Mullins. But I think what they're doing right now is looking towards next year and seeing if they can find a suitor that'll come.
Well, if nothing else, he'd be their third string quarterback, or possibly somebody to push C.J. Beathard next year.
Yeah.
Gonna gloss over this real quick. Bills released Terrell Pryor. They're terrible wide receivers there, but
could mean an uptick for Zay Jones.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Yep. Le'Veon Bell is gonna hold out for the rest of 2018.
So that means this is the last week we're gonna talk about him. For a while.
For a good 7-8 weeks at least. Barring any injury to Connor, of course.
Of course, yep.
So, yeah, he cannot play in 2018. I honestly, for me, it's a business move for Bell. And like I told Jarvis earlier, I'm not going to reach into another man's wallet and tell him how he should be spending his money or making his money.
My only thing with that is, and I understand that there's a business side to it, but my understanding is I just can't. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around the belief or the understanding that his life would be better without the $14.5 million that he would have made this year. Now I get it. There's risk in everything. There's risk in that, but there's risk of, getting in the car and driving and stuff like that. You can't predict the future, but $14.5 million is a lot of money to forego this year.
But think of this: he's playing for job security in the future.
No, I totally get that.
You know,
I totally get that. But my thing is like that's still 14.5 mil.
And what happened to Ryan Shazier last year?
Well, yeah, that's a one-off.
Well, but that's how I look at. I think that kind of sunk in for Bell. You know, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but that's, you know, if I was playing on a 1-year deal worth $14.5 million, where I have no job security in the future, and I see Ryan Shazier on the turf holding his, you know, broken back, and never going to play the game again, and thinking, okay, I'll bypass $14.5 million to maybe get $30-40 million guaranteed, like other superstars do at other positions.
Yeah, and that's the part I do understand, and I do get that.
Yeah.
My thing, okay, so just real fast, as if you're James Conner and you're looking at this, and you're say looking 2-3 years down the road, and you are now the superstar running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers. If he continues this pace, he will be a superstar running back.
Absolutely.
So when it comes time for him to re-up, is he going to be looking at this and being like, well, if they're going to do Lev Bell like this,
why won't they do the same thing to me?
Right.
You know.
So do you think that that's putting additional pressure on the organization? Because I know them and the Packers are the two organizations that are known for not wanting to structure contracts like that with a lot of upfront guaranteed money.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think it's going to cause the Steelers more headaches in the future. I'm not just talking Connor. You know, I'm going to throw out there, you know, T.J. Watt or Juju Smith,
right,
or you know, any number of guys, and I hate the way they do that. And they're behind the times of how the NFL does contracts. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but. Worth noting that we are not going to be talking about him.
No, we're done.
Any longer.
We're done. That will be the last Bell conversation until after week 17.
Yeah, then we get into the off-season podcast.
Yeah, and then we can talk the crap out of them.
Yeah.
Deontay Foreman will practice. 21-day window begins today to activate. Sorry, my dog was chasing his tail. Deontay Foreman practiced today. 21-day window begins today to activate him from his torn Achilles, correct?
Yeah, so once he starts practicing, they basically have 21 days to decide whether they're going to activate him to the 53-man active roster. If that's the case, then it sounds like he may be able to come back and play, I think, against the Colts on December 9th. I think it would be his first day of eligibility back.
That sounds right.
Could be a big boost for the Texans. I mean, the thing that's very difficult. I mean, it's very, very difficult to come back from an Achilles injury, especially as a running back.
It's been a whole year.
Yeah, it was a year to the day. Like I think a couple days ago. So it's been just a little over a year. And those injuries, they linger, and they're really tough to come back from, especially on as a running back.
Exactly.
The one thing he does have on his side is he's extremely young.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see if when or if they do activate him from the PUP list there. So, and then does he cut into Lamar Miller's playing time at all?
I think he does. He did last year.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's going to depend on what kind of shape he's really in.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs and Rams game Monday night being moved to Los Angeles due to poor field conditions in Mexico. They had a big concert there. I didn't catch who the concert was, but apparently they trashed the field pretty bad. And due to safety concerns, and for them to actually already changed the game already on the Wednesday.
It must have been beat up.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I didn't know that. I didn't understand what the deal was, what the conditions were. I thought maybe it was like a storm or something, but I looked, I didn't see any of that. So concert kind of makes sense. I know they if they pack the ground, like floor, like the grass in the infield, I mean, it can definitely get torn up. So it's just kind of poor planning, I guess, on their part.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And, to actually move to one of the crappy LA stadiums, it must have been in pretty bad shape.
But that's good for fantasy purposes. I mean, you're going to have these two high-powered teams duking it out, and you want to have good field conditions, so that's kind of you're going to be able to maximize that.
Well, the only downside with that is they were playing in Mexico City, I believe, and Mexico City was like 7,000 feet.
It's way up there.
Yeah. So, the kickers would have got a huge boost. The defenders would have been at more of a disadvantage, with playing at altitude.
And Mahomes probably could have thrown it out of the stadium at that point.
Oh, like he did last Sunday before when Mahomes was warming up in pregame. If you guys didn't catch it, he threw a 70-yard pass during warm-ups last week, just to show he could. So it was pretty crazy to see. We got the waivers running yet, Jarvis?
We're not quite there yet. We're probably like a minute or two away. But I guess one thing we could note, as far as game changes, we noticed that week 13, the Seahawks and 49ers were going to have a Sunday night game that has been changed to a Sunday noon game, and they have flexed the Chargers Steelers in to play Sunday night instead. I'm guessing they wanted a little bit more fan appeal.
Well,
watchability.
Those are like the third and fourth best teams in the AFC right now, record-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's not too many teams that are hotter than the Steelers right now or more dangerous. The Chargers are no slouches. They did get Joey Bosa practicing today, I do believe.
Yep, and he should be coming back. They said he's not quite ready yet, but trending in the right direction. So we should see him come back in a couple weeks, I would say. 1 to 2. And
that will be a big boost to, a little beleaguered Charger defense there, if he can, regain the form he's had in the past.
Well, and you pair him up with Melvin Ingram. Yeah. Up front. Pretty formidable.
Definitely so. Definitely so. Did they run? I guess we could look at the Friday waivers real quick while we're waiting. Taylor Gabriel was kind of like the bigger name. Fred Warner, no surprise, somebody jumped on him at a fairly cheap price too. Josh Adams.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was me.
Okay.
Taxi guy.
Okay. You were spent $3 on him, huh?
$3.11. Yeah, and Peterson came out yesterday and said that he's wanting to get him some more touches. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, it's still kind of a running back by committee there in Philly, but why not? Worth a stash.
Yeah, very true. Danny Trevathan.
Had to pick him up just in case Tremaine Edmonds couldn't play, and he did so.
And he is usually a tackling machine. I don't know how he's done so far this year. I'm going to assume he's probably not playing third downs there, so probably a little decreased amount of playing time compared to his normal reps. Where's it at? Is it not going to run this week?
We're at 8:02. It should happen here in a second. So I don't know. Do you want to move on and then circle back?
Yeah, we might as well just let's get into last week's. Let's go ahead and get into the recap.
Yeah, we'll just kind of go over. We'll just jump right in. We'll kind of circle back to when those waivers run. We'll be sure to go back and hit on those. But looking back at week 10, wow, after this week, there's a lot of goings on right now amongst the lead and the top 6. So it was an interesting week to say the least. So just real fast, we had 4 teams go 2-0 this week. Mike, Tori, Gary, and myself. Teams that went 1-1, Flip, Stefan, Darky, and Shannon, and then the 0-2 teams. Look at that, Kroll and Will. Surprisingly, 0-2 this week, along with Luke and JJ.
The Kroll and Will are just pretty big kicks to the shins there for those guys. Kroll, dropping down from the top of the division because of it. And Will, it's not so much the division part, even though that's still in play for Shannon, but being reeled in for that second or even having a shot for that first overall seed, that's harsh. It really is.
Yeah, and both Kroll and Will were leading their division.
Yes.
Now, Will is still there, sitting at the top of Division 2, but to have two division leaders this late in the season go 0-2 it doesn't happen often.
No. But boy, how tough of a division is that right now? Looking at the bottom two teams going 4-0 the last, 2-0 both of the last 2 weeks.
Well, I think it's safe to say that Division 1 is probably the toughest division out of them all.
You're really going to admit to that, huh?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, when you look at the records, overall records, you got three teams with winning records, and then you've got the bottom two teams in Division 1 are right there in contention for the 6th overall seed. They've all got over 1,600 points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. And, you look at it, Gary's really kind of been hammered on, almost 3,300 points. That's what, second high, third, fourth high right there.
Yeah, so if you look at his team, like he's been beat up as far as, for the most part all year as far as win-loss records go. Yeah. But he's putting up some points, so he's right there in it.
What do you think would have happened with Gary? Let's switch it around and give him the putrid amount of points that Will has had scored against him. That's over 200 and almost 280 points difference between Will and Gary on points against them.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, Will's got 284 points or so more, but that's a lot of losses Gary's taken because of going up against real high scorers.
Now, unfortunately, we're a little bit too far in the season where I think he can claw his way up to that 5th seed, but the 6th seed is still very much within grasp.
Yeah, that 5th seed is really starting to fall away. The top 5 teams are really looking like they're really poised to.
We did have some movement this week. So after this week, like if the playoffs were to start today, I would still be the number 1 overall seed.
And you're the only team right now who is dead set locked in to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I liked hearing that. But yeah, if the playoffs were to start today, I would still be the number 1 overall seed. Will would be the 2nd overall seed because of the division win and then the record. And then Flip actually is now the 3rd overall seed, where Kroll was the 3rd last week. So it's Jarvis, Will, Flip, and then the 4th seed belongs to Stefan. That's based off of record. And then the 5th seed goes to Kroll. And that's a combination of record and points, depending on which one's the better. But then 6th seed right now, Shannon still has a grasp on that. But that grasp on that 6th seed is starting to slip away from him. He's got 1,690 points on the year. Mike is right there at 1,638. So Mike's like 52 points behind. Gary's 66 points behind, and Tori's 73 points behind right now. So we were just talking about this a little bit before the show, but one bad week for Shannon and one excellent week for either one of those 3, you could see one of those 3, Mike, Gary, or Tori, jump into that 6th seed starting next week.
Absolutely. That's 3 weeks left. A lot can happen in 3 weeks. We've seen how a few mismanagement cues can really hurt you.
I have a feeling we'll talk about one in specific a little later in the show.
Yes, absolutely. So the league is, kind of solidified. The top 5 have solidified. Not quite going to say that anybody but Jarvis is locked in, but it would take quite a bit for. It would take a monumental fall for, let's say, Stefan or really Will, or I'm not gonna call Kroll and I out of the woods with Mike sitting there only 3 games back when you throw in the points. So I'm not going to solidify either one of us absolutely in the playoffs. Well, the top 5 seeds.
Right.
Yeah. Realistically, we would probably, one of us two would probably get that 6th seed if it came down to a bit of a free fall.
Right. I would say that it's getting safer to say that the top 5 people right now are a pretty safe bet to make the playoffs in some aspect.
Agreed.
But it's certainly still open.
Yeah, I think that Shannon's definitely inching his toes a little closer to that cliff with 3 guys sitting there.
And the way Mike's team has been playing,
yes,
he's pretty dangerous right now.
Very dangerous.
Last week he scored over 190. This week he had a high point at 204, and especially like during weeks 9 and week 10 when the bipocalypse is here and you have a lot of guys on buys being able to score that much. That's in doing it back-to-back weeks. That's impressive.
It is very impressive.
So
very impressive indeed. And to point this out, another high point for that number 1 division, where there has only been 3 other high points for the rest of the divisions, and our division has taken 7 out of the 10. I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and all the more reason why I still feel confident saying that Division I overall is probably the toughest division out there.
And it is. I would have to say, definitely overall, you have the 4th place team here, just a couple of games behind Shannon for that, and not that many points behind Shannon in that 2nd division. Yeah, he'd be 3rd in that last division, but you got JJ in that last division that really pulls you guys down pretty far. So, do we have some waivers?
Yeah, the waivers did run, so we can jump on back there, cover those, and we'll see what happened.
Josh Reynolds, that's not too much of a surprise.
Yeah, I had to go aggressive. I ended up having to drop Taylor Gabriel last week, and I've only got 4 wide receivers right now going into the playoff push, and I really want that 5th guy there just in case something happens. And I feel that with Cooper Kupp going out, Josh Reynolds is going to slide right in there and be a viable wide receiver 3 option on a high price on a
and
power
look
offense.
At that, you outbid JJ by less than $3.
Oh wow!
By less than $3. That's crazy.
I bumped that from 171 to 191 probably 20 minutes before the show.
Oh boy!
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy for. The kid's a rookie and all, and with some potential.
Yeah, I submitted it at 716.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Wow, sorry JJ, but I that's awesome for me. It's just unfortunate for him, but I don't think that I can remember a time when I bid that much money on someone and just won by less than $5.
Yes, that's pretty crazy. Now, this is a move that Jarvis and I were kind of talking about before the show, and we'll get into this a little further later on.
This move should have been made last week.
Should have been made last week, yes. I'll use my famous catch line a little later on that. But that's a great pickup. The Packers scored, what was it, 22 last week?
Yeah,
something like that. They scored really well.
Something like that.
Heuerman.
Yep. He's a bye-week fill for Kittle.
Gotcha.
Kittle's on bye.
I was going to say, he doesn't really add much value, and he's a donkey. So, and it was you picking him up. So no surprise.
Demaryius Thomas is coming off a week where he had 12 or 14 targets or something like that. So he's getting a little bit more involved. And I also put in a waiver claim for Mark Andrews because he had 4 or 5 red zone targets last week. But the fact that Flacco may not be playing is what pushed me Heuerman over Andrews.
That makes perfect sense. I get that. Zay Jones,
$23.
Guy's
That's a good value.
Guy's just been such a bust, just on such a bad quarterback team.
He had over a 20-point game last week.
That's a guy that you just got to throw on your taxi squad maybe and just keep your fingers crossed, didn't he?
Yes.
So Gary just didn't bid high enough for him. Mason Foster, I like Mason Foster. He's been a little injury prone the last few years. There's Brandon Marshall, uncontested. Nobody else put in for Brandon Marshall. I'll give Gary some big kudos right there. He also snapped up John Ross, who I also like. John Ross, I'm almost going to assume might be a taxi squad guy. We'll have to kind of look at that.
I wouldn't put, well, depending on your situation, but I would think that he would be a taxi squad as well.
Yeah. Maurice Harris.
That's a great pickup. If you looked up at my top deal, at my top wide receivers I was going after were Josh Reynolds. And if you look there, Maurice Harris, I actually put in $142 on. So since I got Reynolds, I didn't get Harris. Yeah, I didn't get Harris, but for Luke to scoop up Maurice Harris for $7 is incredible. This guy's starting to get targets after targets, and he's really starting to find his role in that offense. And Alex Smith is targeting him a lot more now. So that was a guy that I wanted on my team to help push me past, down the stretch if need be. So it's a good pickup.
I think Will's going to be a little unhappy. I'm almost going to assume that he wasn't really going for both these guys.
Did he?
Maybe he had an injured guy that.
Oh, well, no, because he added Dallas Goedert, dropped none. Added Cameron Brate, dropped Ed Dixon.
So I almost want to say maybe he had a roster spot open to do that.
Probably.
The wide or the tight end position has really been an Achilles heel. I have no idea how Cameron Brate was out there. I fumbled on that myself. Goddard, if I would have, I should have probably made a little taxi squad room. And
I like him.
I do. I watched him play against the Steelers in preseason, and he had a nasty drop, but he also has some pretty soft hands too. Khalil Mack,
it's back healthy.
We'll see. I just don't think he runs down the running backs enough.
No, he's like a Von Miller.
Yeah, the TJ.
He's a wrecking crew like in real life and so valuable to your defense, but he just doesn't put up the points. Now he had a couple monster games, but just on average, just a lot of averages.
Exactly. Ryan Suckup, I do like the pickup. I have him had him in another league, and he kicks a lot of long field goals in Tennessee, and their offense stagnates a lot. So I spent too much time talking about a kicker. Darky, oh boy, Darky. You
what am I seeing?
He botched his waivers a bit. I have no idea what he was doing here. Okay, so he picked up Vince Williams and dropped Foster. I get that part. But he should have just not put Suckup in that second spot. It wouldn't have mattered. He wouldn't have got Suckup anyway. Would he?
Well, no, they're a penny.
That would have gone to a tie, and I'm not sure how the system would have handled that. I think JJ would have got that tie, and this is why I tell people don't put in for silly 1 penny offers.
No,
and
because that wouldn't have. I don't think that would have pushed through. It would have had to push it till Friday, wouldn't have?
What do you mean?
Like if there's a tie for the same person.
No. The system would have picked. I think the system picks the lower guy.
Did you just mention that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was responding to a text from Kroll.
Oh, okay. So
see what you did, Kroll? You messed me up.
So what? And I don't know what this. I don't know why he copied his waivers multiple times there. I don't know why he did that. I guess he needs to watch the show a little more often when we go over this, doesn't he?
Someone's not watching.
Yeah, we do this show for your benefit, not for ours.
Not for ours.
Our stardom's big enough as it is. We're just here to help you out. Okay, enough of the BS there. Let's move on to where are we at now? So we got through that.
I don't know. Did you want to go like the updated 3-year?
Yeah. So the 3-year total is I'm sitting at, Will is sitting at 1908.34, and I'm sitting at 1831.94. So right at 90 or 77.4 points separates Will and I. Unfortunately, I thought I was going to pick up more on Will this past week. Well, that just didn't happen, unfortunately. So, I'm kind of like the 3 playoff guys shooting for that last playoff spot. But this goes through 16 weeks, so I do have time to still cut that lead, or for probably Kroll, or probably for Will to expand that lead. That's what we'll probably.
That goes through the playoffs. Is that correct?
Correct. So that goes through week 16.
So really, all you got to do is like average 10, 12 more points than him.
Being down a quarterback doesn't help, though. So.
Nope.
Yeah. He's got a doggone good team. Well, here we go. Now we have our favorite section. The supers and the poopers. Your super for the week, Jarvis?
Yeah, so here it is, back-to-back weeks. I'm kind of cheating.
You hold on a second there, Mr.
Yeah, I'm kind of cheating a little bit here because, again, like I was looking through and I was wanting to – there was actually a whole bunch of guys that jumped out at me, but I felt the need to talk about 2. And the first one I want to talk about, this is probably going to hurt Flip a little bit, but I want to talk about Zach Ertz for Torrey. This dude just threw up a monster game. And
what do you mean a little bit? I wasn't even watching. I was kind of half watching the game, but I gave up on looking at our score. I had a huge lead on them,
and that's why it's so funny. Is because when Flip is throwing out GroupMe posts of talking trash, and I'm like, Flip, you're really in danger of like losing here. And he's like, what just happened? Well, Zach Ertz just happened. So they're playing against the Cowboys. This guy had 14 receptions for 145 yards, 2 touchdowns on 16 targets.
That's sick.
40.5 points. So far, that puts Zach Ertz, solidifies him as the tight end 1 on the year, which is kind of funny because I was thinking about that. So, 183 points is quite a bit for a tight end. Like, where would that put him in skills and as far as, like, ranking him as a wide receiver as opposed to a tight end? He would be the 8th best wide receiver right now in between Julio Jones and OBJ.
That's some pretty huge company to be sitting between.
Right? That's just insane. This guy's a monster week in, week out. And guess what? Zach Ertz single-handedly helped Torrey go 2-0 this week. So kudos to you, Zach Ertz, super number 1.
I'm still going to refer to that as a pooper. I don't care what you say. Boo.
And so my next super would have to go to Nicholas Chubb. So Mike throws in Nick Chubb this week going against the Falcons. He's had some decent games, but this was an absolute breakout game for him. 20 rushes, 176 yards, a touchdown, 3 receptions, 33 yards, and a touchdown. Got 35.9 points. He also broke a 92-yard touchdown run, which is the longest touchdown run or play from scrimmage this year. This guy killed it in a favorable matchup against the Falcons. I also really liked it because I had him in a bunch of my DraftKings lineups, which helped me win a little bit of money. So, super number 2, I felt that I really had to, throw him in there just again because, once Carlos Hyde left, it was kind of like, well, is it going to be Chubb? Is it going to be Duke? Is it kind of going to be a combination of both? I think with last week and this week, we all kind of know now going forward, Nick Chubb is the guy to start.
Now, I'm going to assume that was also the longest Browns play from scrimmage since Bernie Kosar.
Yeah, very, very well could be. And then also, that helped Mike go 2-0 as well. So kudos to both those guys.
Absolutely. My super
This was a guy that I was thinking about including in my list, by the way.
also goes to Corn Ranch here. Satori, David Johnson. Now, it's not that only David Johnson, 21 rushes for 98 yards and a touchdown, but that's 7 for 85 and another touchdown. But it's really that he's starting to really come along from a pretty mediocre start.
Well, what happened recently?
They got rid of
Mike McCoy. Then they promote Byron Leftwich to their offensive coordinator. He's smart enough to know, hey, I got a playmaker here. I need to get him involved. And look at that. That is involvement. 28 touches.
Well, it's the Chiefs' defense is atrocious on both sides of the ball.
Very attackable.
They're terrible. But that definitely helped. It was kind of like a little bit of a perfect storm for them. But definitely kudos to you, David Johnson, for getting that ship righted at the wrong time for Torrey.
Torrey would disagree.
Torrey would definitely disagree. Your pooper for the week?
Yeah, it's my pooper. This actually is a guy on Darky's team, and it kind of gives me a little validation knowing that I kind of made the right move by dumping this guy last week. But Taylor Gabriel. I mean, what do we make of this guy? So he goes up against the Lions in a matchup that I thought was going to be pretty good for him. He had 0 receptions on just 3 targets. So he put up a gooser in a game that flipped. Mitch Trubisky scored 36 points. He had 355 yards, 3 touchdowns on 30 attempts. And Gabriel was only able to garnish 3 targets.
That's pretty bad.
Now, I get it. He's kind of a boomer bust play, as you can see by the scoring that he had. He had that one monster game against the Bucs. But, I mean, his targets, so he's,
He was getting the targets. So,
But when he's not getting those long plays, he's a gadget guy, And so he needs those long, so similar to like what Tyreek Hill was 2 years ago. He would take those little screen plays for 70 yards, and if he doesn't do it, he's like 4 for 22.
But this was a guy Darky was, streaming on a
yeah,
bye week.
Yeah, and
probably one of the best guys out there to take a shot.
You have to.
And I think he spent. Well, we said it on.
Oh, it wasn't much at all.
So, it was well worth the stream. Unfortunately, the game flow just killed him.
His head was in the right place, and he did what he had to do. And I would have probably done the very same thing. And that's exactly why I put him as a pooper, because when you do that, you're kind of expecting at least something, 7, 8, 10 points.
Agreed. Or, even
but something
3 to 5, but 0.
That really hurt Darky this week. And like I said, it wasn't Darky's fault. Like he did what he needed to do. And
I think it was his fault. He picked him up, right? Yeah, gotta blame the guy. He picked him up.
Now that wasn't necessarily Darky's fault. I think that your pooper. Are we going to talk about something that is 100% on the owner?
Yeah, this is definitely the pooper of the week for Kroll. We talked about this last week a bit, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. We both scratched our head at the whole Bengals pickup, picking them up and starting them against the number 1 offense in the league, one of the most dangerous offenses in the league,
against his 3-headed monster on his team.
Was he rooting against his 3-headed monster on this deal? This was really just a head scratcher. They gave up over 500 yards, 52 points, and a big goose egg. Nothing.
Yeah, so every time Breeze, Kamara, and Thomas were putting up points and scoring, it was taking away from his own team because he was starting the defense that was going up against the Saints. So, Yeah, we had mentioned it on the podcast because we thought for sure he would make a move on that Friday waiver wire and pick up somebody else, and he didn't. And
And we looked at the Packers. We talked about them scoring 22 last week, and that would have gave him a win against Shannon and would have kept his division lead and would have also stayed ahead of me just a little bit in points, overall points on the division. So that was...
Yeah, and this late in the season to just have those small little mental lapses can be costly.
Yeah, small? I hate to really beg on you, Kroll, but that's...
No, and
I just... It just really baffles me.
And don't get me wrong, like I don't think that he's in any threat at all of missing the playoffs.
No.
But having that first or second seed and having that first round bye is just such a huge advantage.
Mm-hmm. Or even worse, getting shoved down to play, maybe that fifth seed if, let's say, Mike gets in. Let's say Mike runs the table. Nobody would want to play Mike right then, I wouldn't think.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
But this is one of those, you just take your lumps, you learn from it, you move on, you buckle you strap your boots on and head back to work. You know what I mean?
Exactly. My pooper, I hate to do this on my own team, but...
Ooh, you're pooping your own pants.
Anthony Hitchens, this is a guy that I was actually looking at dropping a few weeks ago after that 4.5-point game. But then he hopped back on and was scoring. So I'm like, well, heck, against the Cardinals? All right, sure. And he hurts his ribs early in the game and gets a big fat 0. And that really hurt, losing by, I got the 10-point win there, but, losing by, under little over 14 points to Torrey there. That just really hurt. Where he hadn't scored 14, but still might have had a shot.
And it's not on the same level, like quite with the same magnitude, but you know what? You officially now have your own Mark Barron.
Yes. Not on the same magnitude.
No.
It didn't happen during a playoff game. So
just a quick recap. I lost a flip last year in the playoffs by like 1.5 points, and my starting linebacker was hurt on the first drive and got a goose egg, and I ended up losing by like 1.5 points. So if he could have managed to have like maybe one tackle, I think I could have went on to the championship game, which I ultimately ended up outscoring the top 4 teams, but would have won me the championship. But same situation. So
but he wasn't there.
No.
And I got that trophy sitting downstairs on the shelf instead.
Yeah.
All right, let's hop into the preview for this week 11. Good matchup between Stefan and I.
I like seeing this.
I knocked Jarvis off a couple of weeks ago. That was a little sweet revenge from earlier in the year. I do believe Stefan beat me early in the year as well. That's going to be a good matchup. I do see that he has put in. Yeah, he did put in his lineup. Then within a couple of points. I might do a little roster juggling. I am without McCoy this week, so that does hurt a little bit.
What else would you do? I don't think that you really have much of a choice.
Well,
do you?
with McCoy out, that's where it kind of screws things up a bit.
You have to start those 4 wide receivers.
Yeah. But Watkins is dinged up. He might not play, so he didn't play last week, and I don't want to throw Jesse James in there. So,
just looking across at both teams, I think everybody's kind of solidified as to what they need to do. I
thought I put in a waiver request, but I must have did something wrong. Not sure what happened there.
Doesn't Stefan have like a guy under the sheets for you?
the sheets for me.
Mm-hmm.
You can't trade anymore.
No, a sleeper.
Oh, sleeper. Oh, does he? Boy, oh boy. I was asleep at the helm there, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Guys?
All right. So
I definitely was. So, oh boy, oh boy. So, Stefan has my sleeper of the week, and this is not an easy call. And so, I would go with Doug Martin
over Derek Carr.
over Derek Carr. Martin's coming on, double 15 carries last week. Yeah, 61 yards. That's respectable, but the 3 catches for 31 yards, that's nice. That's a little cream on the crop,
Mm-hmm.
Derek Carr, just not good. Just not good. The Cards are 27th ranked against the run D.
You can run all day against the Cardinals, so I can get with you on that.
Cardinals are 4th against the pass, and Carr's coming off of 2 terrible games. Could you actually see Carr struggle and them go with McCarron's at halftime? That might be a little extreme, but
not out of the world realm of possibilities, though.
Yeah. So, will he listen to that compared to my, totally, my totally botched, was it sleeper? No, never mind. I'll skip that. So let's move on. Darky's got, he would get a big boost if AJ Green was actually going to start this week. He does have some bye week issues going on. Looks like he'll throw in Vince Williams, so I have to root against Vince Williams, which that's actually pretty easy to do for me because I don't like Vince Williams. So, and the last time Vince Williams played against the Jaguars, they ran for like 200 yards. So,
yeah.
So that'll be a pretty. It's lopsided on paper, but we both know that these matchups aren't played on paper. So here is definitely one of the premier matchups of the week.
I would totally agree. And we've got Tom Brady on a bye, so Will is going to have to start another flex option other than Brady. So looks like he's going Jalen Richard. Flexing him in. What do you think?
That is an excellent move. Last week, I actually told Will to start Richard. Well, Will was smart enough to actually go with Aaron Jones, and we've seen what happened there. 32.2 points out of Aaron Jones last week. So luckily he didn't listen to me there on my really poor start last week. But I do like Jalen Richard. Jalen Richard has been coming on, 10.9. Yeah, he had only 9, but 14, 12, 11. Those are some pretty solid numbers for, your flex guy during your bye weeks.
And what's funny is, like, you said Jalen Richard was your start of the week last week?
He was my...
Or sleeper?
He was my start. Yes,
yeah,
he was.
And last week, Kareem Hunt, same team for Will. Kareem Hunt was my start of the week. That was kind of a botched one, too. Yeah. In an extremely favorable matchup, he only ended up getting like 11 points last week. So we were not very accurate.
No, we were pretty poor last week. So hopefully we can turn that around a little bit this week.
I'm extremely confident this week. So you guys listen and you listen good, and you can take what I say to the bank.
I'm going to take that to the bank.
Yeah.
Cha-ching. Yeah. Cha-ching.
Probably not. But
oh, no. Okay.
But yeah, this is going to be a great matchup here.
We got Luke and Kroll, 2 teams just totally opposite spectrum here.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Oh, look at those buys.
So, okay, sorry, Luke. I did this before I even looked at your roster to see.
Ooh,
Well, he wouldn't really have much of an option anyway, but my sit of the week is Andy Dalton. Flip, I am not high on him at all this week. I've liked him in games before in the past. This week is not one of them. He's going on the road, playing against Baltimore. You know, in his last 12 games without A.J. Green, which we know Green's going to be out. So in his last 12 games without A.J. Green, Dalton has thrown 12 touchdowns and 12 picks. You know, the Cincinnati offense only put up a total of 285 yards last week, and he's thrown 10 picks in the last 9 games. So, and 3 of them have come in the last 3 games.
Well, there's one little problem with that, Jarvis.
What's that?
He doesn't have another quarterback.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, but I'm giving you the reasons as to why I said, like, I feel that way.
Okay. No, I get it.
And Dalton's been held to under 150 yards in 2 of the last 3 weeks, and Ravens as a team is holding their opponents to 205 yards per game. So I'm not high on him. So I apologize, Luke. He's my sit of the week, and I know that you don't have another option, so you have to throw him in there. I just don't want you to have a lot of expectations for him this week because I unfortunately do not.
With his team, it's a little torn up right now. I'm going to assume that he's going to start Demaryius Thomas for Edelman. Guessing those are the 2 guys. Aguilar, really? 12 points? Has he scored 12 points in a while? Oh, I guess he did last
week. Yeah.
I must have missed that. I was going to say, he started out like gangbusters and then kind of went to sleep for most of the year. But I guess if he's coming back on, I'll be rooting for you, Luke. No worries there.
Yeah, I will be too.
I don't know if it's really going to matter.
Well, I think that he'll put in Maurice Harris. Or Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah, right. But didn't you also earlier in the year predict Luke was going to break 200 points?
I sure did, and I was off by just a little bit. I think maybe like 50 or 60 points.
That's nothing. Flesh wound there. All right. Corn Ranch and Tori and Mike, or Tori and Gary.
Yeah, I've got some people to talk about in this matchup.
Does your start come from this matchup?
My start does come from this matchup. In Tori's team, Mr. David Johnson just got done talking about his week last week. So he's at home versus the Raiders this week. Raiders 29th versus the run. They give up an average of 141 yards a game. David Johnson, he rushed 21 times last week against the Chiefs. He's getting more and more involved, like I said, with the offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich, coming on. Had 7 receptions for 85 and a touch. You know, Oakland's a mid-tier versus the pass. They're like 17th. And Arizona's offense could be on the field quite a bit in this game because Oakland's offense is not good. So I'm looking for a big game again, a repeat performance out of David Johnson. Absolute. Start of the week. Fire him up.
Yeah, I'm fully behind you on that one. I think David Johnson's definitely hitting some full cylinders against some weak defenses here. We'll see in a few weeks once he gets to that, week 13, week 14. Or, geez, that's not even it. Now I'll just shut my mouth. I can't even read this right. David Johnson is basically locked and loaded for the rest of the season. Let me rephrase that.
Yes.
28th, 16th, 20th, 26th, 19th, 22nd. You can't ask for a more favorable schedule down the stretch for a running back. I would say he's just locked and loaded the rest of the year.
Absolutely.
And that could propel Torrey into this playoffs, couldn't it? David Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely it could. Again, both these teams, there's a lot on the line between Torrey and Gary here. Both these teams are battling out for that 6th seed. So
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. And actually, not to go back to Torrey's team, but I've got to mention that my sleeper of the week is on his team. And he's in his starting roster, and Dion Lewis. Dion Lewis, they're playing against the Colts, coming off of a disappointing performance last week. So that could lead to some apprehension this week to play him. But hey, the Titans led most of the game against the Patriots, which kept an involvement out of the passing game to a minimum. I get it. But over the last 3 games, he's averaged 21.7 touches. So that's a ton of involvement.
It is.
So look for him to bounce back in a really good matchup against the Colts. So fire him up.
I'm actually surprised how many rushes he's been getting compared to Derrick Henry to be almost 2 to 1, almost 2 to 1 against him on number of rushes. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
definitely not expected, and that's gotta make him scratch his head a little bit for next year. On do you keep Henry? do you go as far as keeping Drake?
Oh yeah, I know that's tough. And Naheem Hines, I think that. Oh man, yeah, he's gonna have a decision to make.
Yeah, he will. I fully back you on the Dion Lewis. I think that is a great call for Dion Lewis. And like you said, that is going to be a battle. Gary hitting some of his bye weeks.
And then Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp. Boy.
Yeah.
And you see why, he picked up Brandon Marshall just in case, and he's got 2 Qs next to 2 other guys there.
Yeah.
That's tough. And did he just pick up John Ross?
He did today.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so he threw him in just for our show. Thank you, Gary. We appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
So, and this would get into my sit of the week for Gary. Ugh.
Who is it?
Jordan Howard.
Oh boy. What do you do with Jordan Howard? I feel you, Gary. The frustration that the majority of Jordan Howard owners have had to go through this year.
I understand that this is probably game flow or whatever because they did get up on the Lions, but 11 carries for 21 yards? How does that even happen? And he actually had a catch this week for the first time. He had just been coming on for 3 straight weeks. Gary felt, Gary started them one week and said, no. And then he went, oh, no, I didn't start him for 2 weeks. And then he throws him back in his starting lineup going against a 26th ranked defense saying, yes, give me some points. Only for Howard to go, no, I don't think so. I'm going to disappoint you all over again, Gary.
That's like running the ball up to the line of scrimmage, hitting your offensive lineman, and then just falling forward for like 2 yards.
Yeah. So, I'm going to suggest starting Lat Murray over him. Now, this is where that trade is actually going to pay off here. That we both kind of gave Gary a little grief over. But, Lat Murray still sharing time, 11, almost 12 points last week. Yeah, 10 for 31, not a whole lot better than Howard, but he's that touchdown vulture 4 games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting he didn't have the catches last week, but he did the week before. And, so, yeah, he's going up against the Bears defense. I get it. That it seems kind of silly. But I think Howard's in a worse situation going up against the 4th-ranked Vikings defense, run defense there.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you, Flip. I think it sounds crazy. But
And Kerryon Johnson last week got a bunch of, points in garbage time last week.
Yeah, and
the Bears D.
And I feel bad. I botched that one too. He was my sit of the week last week. And he goes up against Chicago and 14 rushes, 51 yards, a touchdown, 6 receptions, 38 yards and a touchdown. He had 26.9 points. So, man, sorry, Gary. I never saw that game coming, especially with how the Bears defense has been playing at home and especially with Theo Riddick coming back. I just did not see that happening.
No, neither one of us did. Would you sit? Would you play Howard this week, or would you go with Lat Murray?
It's such a tough decision because when you just look at the names you want to throw in, Jordan Howard is like almost an auto start every week, just because of the potential that he's got. But you're getting more production out of Lat Murray, and I tell you what,
second running back.
Yeah, and the thing is that you're absolutely right. Like we kind of poked fun at the trade that he made. But I tell you what, if you go out and you get a guy and you spend a second rounder on him and that's going to propel you into the playoffs and get your money back to pay, for the league, that's worth it.
Mm-hmm. Now, this also features the game where, last week was my sleeper, where I had Russell Wilson in for Bortles for Gary. And let's see, did that pay off last week? I don't even remember to be. So 28 points versus Bortles last week. I got 7 points on the good off that. So I'll take that way more than what I got out of my start last week. So,
but you said that you would rather play Bortles over Wilson, right?
Yeah, and that's actually my start of the week as well this week.
Oh, right on.
So, Bortles is coming off 2 good games and simply has the Steelers' number. The Steelers are 19th against the pass this year. They got so fed up with their number 1 draft pick a few weeks ago and actually sat him for a journeyman cornerback.
Who was that?
Cody Sensabaugh is the Steelers' right cornerback, and the ageless wonder, who I still don't like, Joe Hayden, will be the primary.
So would you call him Cody Senses Bud on the bench?
No, because already getting totally burned week in, week out.
That was a poor attempt at a pun.
So was mine. Mine was I followed yours up worse. But Russell Wilson here going up against the 5th ranked pass defense out of the Packers. Yeah, Russell Wilson's been pretty money for 5 straight weeks. I would give Bortles the nod this week again over Russell Wilson.
Man, that's 2 takes where you're benching 2 players with a name value.
Absolutely.
Over. That's risky, but hey, sometimes you got to take those risks. But I see your logic though. And fantasy football is all about putting yourself in the best possible matchup, because fantasy football is unpredictable.
Well, and the worst part is this sound advice? Would I be getting Gary into the playoffs by him actually listening to me? I'd have to look back to see what he started last week, but if he didn't listen to me, he lost out on 7 points last week. If he listened to me, he got those 7 points last week. Yeah. So, and when he's only, what'd you say? He was within 65 points?
Gary?
Playoffs this year?
Yeah, no. Gary is within 66 points.
Yes. So 7 points is actually quite a bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we'll see what Gary thinks about my advice there. See if he picks it up. See if I help him out or hurt him, or if he hurts himself on the deal. We got you against Luke. Luke with bye weeks and injuries and poor performances, and
I haven't had time because since we started the show, and my tight end was on bye and the waivers ran during the show, I haven't put in my tight end. But I would assume Hireman's probably projected for 6 to 7 points.
Hireman 6.68.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll put you into the mid 170s.
Oh, I wasn't even looking at that.
Just a hair above what Luke is supposed to score this week. Just a smidge. So, okay, that should be about as big of a blowout on paper as it will be, come Monday night at 11.
Well, there's the jinx. That's the jinx.
We'll see. Luke just doesn't have backup running back, or I should say second string running back. A guy who runs as the second string running back.
And it was announced today that Chris Carson was going to be starting for Seattle too.
So that really hurts there. Just doesn't have a number 1 wide receiver going up against Hopkins and Beckham alone. You could really make a case for saying Beckham and Hopkins will outscore his 3 wide receivers and a couple of running backs. He just doesn't have the firepower. Cobb not producing and hurt. Demaryius will be in there. That will help.
Mm-hmm.
But just a real struggle for him. This could be an interesting matchup here with Stefan and Shannon.
Mm-hmm.
Shannon struggling to score some points and make the playoffs. He's got Zay Jones on a bye. Stefan's got not really a bad bye week issues going on. He is starting J.J. Watt. His other linebacker. Oh, boy. Yeah, Miles Jack, I think, got him like 2 or 4 points last week. He is not 4.5. I was actually surprised Stefan didn't make more moves there.
Now, one thing that kind of jumps out to me is Shannon. He's got Andrew Luck on the bench. Do you start him over Fitzpatrick or Goff? Like, I think you have to start Goff for sure.
Well,
especially against the Chiefs.
See, I almost looked at this being
But Fitz is going to be throwing all the time. Like, he's good. It's just, man. But what's so crazy about him, he threw over 400 yards, and the team only scored 3 points.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because he's a turnover machine. They turned over the ball 5 times inside the 25, and 3 of them were on Fitzmagic. And Fitzmagic, I'm going to sort of lump him right in there with Eli Manning. I don't like him as quarterbacks, but they're fantasy machines. And going up against the Giants and their terrible secondary, I agree with playing Fitzmagic. I don't think
you can make a bad start-sit decision between those 3.
Now,
I think
the Titans defense,
has been playing well.
I have them, and look at that, 6th against the pass. That's why I agreed there and didn't suggest doing the other way.
But Luck throws the ball a lot. I mean, he's been averaging like 36, 37 pass attempts.
And he's been getting the touchdowns. And I just look at that Titans D. He did tear up the Jaguars D last week, but they were without AJ Boya too. So that's just another great matchup. That will be fun to watch. I hope Shannon beats him 199. I'll go with that again.
Oh, new 99. Darky would like that. That'd get him off the low point schneid.
Like JJ and Shannon. Oh boy. JJ, come on, buddy. Where's your lineup? Let me see that Ty Montgomery and Adrian Peterson in your lineup. Let me tease you about that. Or you do have a kicker. Yeah, there's that Ryan.
Adrian Peterson's going to have a tough matchup against the Texans run defense.
I think JJ's going to struggle to break 120. Shannon's going to get a nice, easy win there.
Yep, I agree.
Now
here's another one.
Will coming off that, going 1-1 last week. No Tom Brady. Tom Brady kind of took the last few weeks off though too. So it does hurt his totals a bit, but he's still a heavy favorite against Gary. But we'll see. That big implications there with the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Corn Ranch and Darky. Darky's got some bye week issues going on. Not so much for Torrey.
Well, and like I had mentioned, Marcus Mariota's got that favorable matchup against the Colts. Marcus Mariota last week was my sleeper of the week. He was at home versus the Patriots, and we all know what happened in that game. That was kind of a blowout, actually.
Oh, it wasn't even a game.
No, he's 16-24, 228, 2 touchdowns, 22.32 points. They pretty much embarrassed the Patriots at home in that game, and Brady came out.
Yeah.
So I felt pretty good about that call. I mean, 22 points out of a sleeper, and granted it was a quarterback, but I think that most people going into that game would have picked the Patriots to win that handily.
Nope, I agree. I absolutely agree. Mike against JJ again.
We got some lineups that aren't completed, but I think Mike.
Oh, Mike's got the depth here. You know, he can throw in Dalvin and go with, you know, when you got Dalvin and T.Y. sitting on the bench or Allen Robinson.
Yeah, he'll have Dalvin Cook and Marlon Mack going this week. Cooks, Hill. What, probably Hilton? Would you go? Okay, so Hilton, Allen Robinson, Cooks. You got to start two of them because you're going to start Tyreek Hill, right?
Well, yeah.
You have
because
to.
The Rams secondary kind of sucks. But who do you start? T.Y. or Allen Robinson?
Well, especially if Marcus Peters is on Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's going to have 40 points.
Yeah. Marcus Peters
is just
really
getting torched
bad this year, just real bad. Me, you know, I'm gonna roll the dice and go with T.Y. over Allen Robinson. I would
do the same.
I wouldn't want Xavier Rhodes on Allen Robinson there. I think that not the lineup I would want to see.
Oh, and as I'm just handing out free advice to Mike, we look at our matchups coming up here.
Yes.
This will be a fun one. Yeah, a little nervous because Flip and I were talking about Mike's team and how he's been on a bit of a tear and how he's kind of scary to play right now.
Mm-hmm.
So this one will be interesting to watch, and
absolutely.
I am a little nervous.
Mike could definitely go a long way with going another 2-0, picking up six wins this late in the year. So,
and my two starting defenses, like, who do I go against? Who do I throw in there? Do I start the Rams against the Chiefs or the Broncos against the Chargers? Like, it scares me because one of my I almost put Melvin Gordon as my start of the week, and I didn't want to do it because he's on my own team. But the Broncos, you can absolutely run on, and that's what Melvin Gordon's been doing lately. Is just he hasn't been doing a lot through the air.
Agreed.
Catching a lot of passes. So both of my defenses I'm not a fan of at all. So, yeah, this will be an interesting matchup to see.
Definitely so. Definitely. It's going to be a great week coming up. A lot of playoff teams playing each other. A lot of the almost playoff teams, you know, the three teams that are just a few points, you know, within 60, 70 points of making the playoffs, sitting right there on the precipice of getting in, you know, knocking Shannon out. And you know, those guys fighting, you know, Mike's got the outside shot at getting in to a higher seed than even the 6th seed right now. I love this time of the year. Just absolutely love it. It's going to be so much fun to watch who wins, who doesn't. And the injuries. Do the injuries hit this week?
It's always it can happen anytime. We've only got one more week of bye weeks after this week. Next week features two prominent, high-powered offenses. The Chiefs and the Rams are going to be on byes next week. So after that, then it's back on normal, and we're all gearing up for that final push.
Absolutely. All righty, folks. Well, that definitely concludes another fantastic week of intentional streaming. Sorry, my pooch was our little, definitely our little brat for the night, and we're not sure what's going to happen with the show next week. With the holiday coming up, we're definitely going to have to play that by ear. We might need a co-host on Wednesday. My mom might be here. Maybe she'll be my co-host.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah. That's not going to happen. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we will catch you next week.
Check you later.